The former president of Kosovo has flown to The Hague to face war crime charges. Hashim Thaci earlier resigned immediately after learning that he was being indicted. The charges relate to alleged crimes committed during Kosovo's war of independence against Serbia in the 1990s. Mr. Thaci, a former senior commander of the Kosovo Liberation Army, denies any wrongdoing. Well, let's find out more. Joining us now is Valerie Hopkins, Southeast Europe correspondent for the Financial Times. Thank you very much for speaking to us. So I guess the first question is, what are the implications if he was charged?
Well, thank you very much for having me. And it's important to note that for years now, there's been speculation about the role that Mr. Thaci played during and right after the war in some of the crimes that happened as the NATO troops were arriving and Serbian forces were leaving Kosovo. But Mr. Thaci is undoubtedly one of the most important figures in Kosovo, not only serving as the political commander of the Kosovo Liberation Army, but then becoming prime minister when Kosovo declared independence in 2008, serving 2 terms foreign minister, and until recently becoming president several years ago, the leader of its biggest and most important party. So one of the most interesting implications and questions for this is that he has been, for many years, one of the key interlocutors for the many Western backers of Kosovo. And in some ways, it raises questions about the support that key allies had in supporting him and in supporting Kosovo through its transition from a UN protectorate into an independent state in 2008. But I do want to point out that unlike many leaders from the former Yugoslavia who hid for many years, especially in Serbia, often with the help of Serbian state structures, Mr. Thaci has continued to offer his full cooperation to the court and has said that he believes in the judicial process. And of course, he believes that his name will be cleared through this judicial process.
As that process gets underway, can you just talk us through what the process will be and the kind of timeline that we're looking at?
Wow. Well, it's very hard to know. I mean, this court has been met with many, many delays. I mean, some of the allegations that will be litigated in the court, were first raised in 2009, the year after Kosovo was declared independent, in the memoirs of a former ICTY prosecutor, Carla Del Ponte, who was a prosecutor at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. And then it went on to be investigated in 2011 in one report by a Swiss politician, and again and again. And finally, in 2015, with the support and backing of Mr. Thaci, who was instrumental in whipping up the votes in Parliament, the Kosovo Parliament voted to establish this tribunal. And now it's been 5 years later. So it's going to be hard to know. I think these proceedings will be slow and take time. But one thing that is very important about this court now is that victims will have their right to access all the proceedings, to have rights to notification and also to reparation, and to really engage with the process in a way that advocates for victims hope will be restorative.
Just finally, as you've said, he is expecting to have his name cleared. That's what he said publicly anyway. What do we think will form the basis of Mr. Thaci's defence?
That's a very good question. I have not spoken at great length with his lawyers, but I think he will probably speak about the fact that he was a political leader, so he was participating in a lot of negotiations, interfacing with internationals, and I think he will probably try to present himself as not having been present when some of the alleged crimes were committed. But that's pure speculation on my part. But I think it's important to raise the question about what this will do for relations between Serbia and Kosovo. Because many Kosovars see this court as incredibly divisive and unfair. 90% of the crimes committed during the Kosovo War were committed by Serbian military forces against ethnic Albanians. And this is a court that's been set up mostly to look at the crimes committed by the Kosovo Liberation Army. And this has increased, many people in Kosovo see Hashim Thaci as a founding father. Joe Biden has referred to him as the George Washington of Kosovo. Still others do see him as a corrupt leader who has, kind of captured the state in Kosovo. So it's not that he has full support, but many Kosovars are incredibly embittered that this court is being foisted upon them 20 years later, while others are hoping that it will finally bring a conclusion to the allegations that have dogged Mr. Thaci and therefore their young state for 2 decades now.
Thank you very much for just laying out some of the context for us. Valerie Hopkins, South East Europe correspondent for the Financial Times.